This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Brewers have won 9 of the last 10 games. That's after a 9-1 rout of the Reds this afternoon down in Cincinnati. Milwaukee did much of its damage via the long ball. Jackson Chourio had a 2-run blast in the 5th to give the Crew a 3-0 lead. Daz Cameron had his own 2-run shot in the 6th, and Isaac Collins capped the Brewers scoring in the 9th with a 3-run bomb. Chourio ended up with 3 hits. Reese Hoskins and Bryce Terang each had a pair. The offense, more than enough for Milwaukee's pitching staff. D.L. Hall got the start, going 3 scoreless innings. Then Quinn Priester came on for the next 5, allowing just the 1 run on 2 hits while striking out 4. He got the win to improve to 3-2 on the year. Has now posted a 2.31 ERA over his last 6 games. The win allowed the Brewers to take 2 of 3 in the series, their 12th straight series win over the Reds. It meant a 5-1 road trip and a 9-1 record of the last 10 games. It has them a season best 5 games above 500 and just a half game back of St. Louis for second place in the NL Central. Milwaukee will get tomorrow off before opening up a weekend series against San Diego at American Family Field on Friday.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
They believe in protecting the families and children in our farming communities. Kids love to be included in the daily farm activities, but accidents can happen quickly. Reduce the chance of injury by making sure your farm is a safe environment for adults and kids. Learn more at ruralmutual.com.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Packers have just 1 day left of OTAs. Then it's just a 3-day mandatory minicamp next week to close out the offseason. And Wisconsin has landed a 3-star tight end in the class of 2026. Michigan product Jack Janda became the second tight end to commit this week. Chose the Badgers over offers from Michigan State and Stanford, among others. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil.
Speaking of Chourio, fly ball out to right, sending Benson back. He is staring and gone. Jackson Chourio hits his 10th home run of the season, and the Brewers jump out to a 3-0 lead.
They're now 12-8 against them.
3-2, hammered out towards left center field, and it is gone for Daz Cameron. Isaac Collins out to left field and deep, and it is gone for Collins.
Very pleased with those reserves, so to speak, Crosse and Monasterio, Daz Cameron. They had good games, they're hungry to play, and that's what it's about. We expect those guys to go in and do that.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Little audio from today's Brewers win. 3 home runs. One from Daz Cameron and another from Isaac Collins, because, of course, that's just how you draw it up. And I included a little bit from Murph postgame about, you could tell he almost didn't even like calling those guys reserves. Did he say reserves or role players? He paused a little bit because, and basketball coaches can sometimes be the same way. They don't like referring to anybody on their team as a role player or as a reserve, right? Coaches and teammates, they typically try to stay away from that language. But come on, it's Daz Cameron. Again, it's Isaac Collins. Not exactly 2 names that we were talking a lot about during the offseason or spring training, or heck, even a month ago. So 2 home runs from those guys. Now, Chourio hit 1 too. It's a guy that you expect to have a home run. But even outside of the home runs, Andrew Monasterio, I believe, had the first RBI that originally put the Brewers on the board. So a getaway day, the series finale, an off day tomorrow. Not surprising that Contreras gets a day off, especially because he appeared to be struggling a little bit last night. So it was the reserves, even though I say reserves again, respectfully, like Pat Murphy did, who had a big day for the Brewers. And I want to talk about that, last night's loss and today's win. That's where we'll begin. We don't need to stay there long. I want to talk plenty about the Packers as well. A lot of audio from coaches and players yesterday, courtesy of Mike Clemens, that I want to continue to pick at. So we'll get to that as well. And I'm hoping, as we're broadcasting live here at Flipside on La Crosse's north side, one more day in La Crosse for Bill and I. He's got his cigar dinner out on French Island tonight, which I'm jealous of the cigars and the dinner. I mean, that's great. I'll just take any opportunity I can get to go out onto French Island. So I'm going to try to get out there after the show. But I also don't want to run out of here too quickly after 6 o'clock because I think I want to get some fish tacos. $4.50. It's Wednesday, so that's the daily special. You can also get $5 apps and 2-for-1s as happy hour is underway, and that'll continue until 6 o'clock. So stop by on your way home from work if you're a WKTY listener here in La Crosse. I'm hoping that we get some listeners. We got a couple here, and if you are someone who calls or in the past has wanted to call and you just never have, I got a second headset. So you're more than welcome to sit down for a couple minutes and talk Packers and talk Brewers. I went to an open mic night last night at Popcorn on 4th Street in downtown. So there were people playing music and doing karaoke. Let's just keep that vibe going. So if you want to come and sit down and talk Brewers for a couple minutes or talk Packers, more than welcome to join me at the table. I have a second headset, which when we were here a couple weeks ago, I forgot, and I felt like an a-hole for that. So you're more than welcome as the show progresses to stop by, get something 2 for $1 during happy hour, $5 app, or Wednesday is fish tacos. So you can get a couple of them things for $4.50. Very, very good. And the weather, unlike yesterday, doesn't stink. So we can enjoy the patio and we can enjoy some time out there as well, assuming that it doesn't start raining. The weather's kind of been hit and miss the last 48 hours. So last night, the Loggers did get the game in. It was a blast. And we had a great crowd. I was talking with Ben Kapanke and Dan, the owner, as well, a little bit after the show was done. And, you know, I didn't want to come out and say that I was surprised that people were coming to the Lumberyard because those games are super well attended. And you know, this town loves its Loggers just as, you know, Express fans love going to Carson Park and folks in Madison love going to the Duck Pond to watch the Mallards. But when it's 58 degrees and it's been raining, and it's a Tuesday night, I didn't expect people to be kicking down the doors when gates opened, but that was the case last night. So it was a lot of fun. So we've had a blast here in La Crosse. We're going to continue tonight. Let's get right into it. I want to talk about the Brewer game last night and then the Brewers win today. They won their 12th straight series against the Reds, which is insane. Thank God for the Reds, because they have been the antidote for the Brewers when they've needed a team that they can beat up on. Or, you know, in the case of this week, I know their losing streak stopped at 8, I believe, last night. But then even so able to win the finale and win the series. That's 12 straight series wins. And just a couple of, I guess, statistical framings or record framing. Dom Catronio, who's just an awesome resource for all things Brewers. He's on the flagship and he does the postgame on WTMJ. 5-1 on this road trip, winning 9 of the last 10, winning 13 of the last 17. And now with an off day tomorrow, they come home for a 10-game homestand, which will be the longest homestand of the year. So the Brewers, I think, are in a pretty good spot. I still have some questions about how good they can be, but I'll certainly take this. I'll certainly take this brand of baseball, and I'll certainly take this product as opposed to what we were getting about a month ago. Last night, Freddie was a little frustrating to watch, and if you just look at his final line, he's not bad. 6 innings pitched. He did give up 7 hits, which isn't great, but only 3 earned runs, 9 strikeouts, 3 walks. You'd look at that line and think, all right, that's a pretty decent start. And I guess it was. The problem often with Freddie Peralta is that we have eyes and we need to watch him pitch. And I'm not trying to be a jerk, but it can be pretty frustrating sometimes to watch him because he labors and he wastes a lot of pitches. And that's not anything new with Freddie Peralta, but it seems more often than not, we're getting that version of Freddie than the version that can just cruise and really sit down guys. You know, not every inning is going to be 1, 2, 3 up, 3 down, but I like a little bit more of that from Freddie Peralta, and it can just really, it can just give me a headache to watch him pitch. And Bill and I were at a spot downtown near Buzzard Billy's last night, watching a little bit of the game, and we're watching Freddie just work way harder than I think he needs to. He reminds me of Jeremy Jeffress in late 2018 when he started to fall off a little bit. And I don't know if Jeffress was fatigued in 2018 or sometimes relief pitchers, just the more they pitch, the better beat that hitters are able to get and opposing scouts and coaches. So who knows? But I remember at the end with Jeffress, and this is pre-pitch clock era, you got to remember too, it would just like, you just want to pull your hair out watching him because he would labor so much. And then he would waste pitches. So it felt like we were waiting 2 minutes in between pitches. All right, here comes a huge pitch. And he'd, you know, throw it way out of the zone. It's a non-competitive pitch. And listening to Pat Murphy over the last season and a half, I think that's something that really gets his goat. And with good reason, because when you're a team that in most matchups isn't going to be as talented, they're not as talented as the Cubs or, you know, other teams like obviously the Dodgers or the Phillies. Not that stopped them in Philly last weekend, but they're just not as talented, especially this year, and they need to scrap and claw to find ways to win games, especially when the bats are cold. Hasn't been the case the last 2 weeks, but I think in the big picture, that's been true. You just can't afford to be sloppy. You can't afford to lose on the margins. And watching Freddie Peralta throw over 100 pitches, and he didn't even throw 70 strikes. So a lesser percent, what is that, 68, 69%, probably closer to 65% of his pitches last night were strikes. I'm not going to do that math in my head. I'll just spitball it. That's not good enough. At least it's not good enough what you're supposed to get from Freddie Peralta. I am open-minded to the idea of a Freddie Peralta trade. You got to remember, anytime we talk buy or sell with the Brewers, buyers or sellers at the deadline specifically, there's not a team the last couple of years that has traditionally been a buyer or a seller. Sometimes they add a little bit or sometimes they subtract a little bit. For the most part, they ride it right down the middle and they sit on the fence because that's kind of their strategy, big picture, right? We always want to be good. I always want to be in the mix. I always want to be competing, but we never want to go all in to the point where it's seriously going to hurt us into the future. And we never want to pull back so far as sellers that it completely trashes our product in the here and now. Now, my opinion, I think that's a fine way for the Brewers to try to compete and win. I think we've seen it be a fine way for them to try to win and compete the last couple of years. It's not their big picture team building strategy that cost them a series against the Mets. It was Yoel Payamps forgetting to cover first base and Devin Williams giving up a tank to Pete Alonso. Like, that's not on Mark Attanasio. That's not on Matt Arnold. Yeah, of course, he could spend a little bit more. And we could say that every day, and we would be able to say that every day for the rest of our lives just because, that's the nature of the beast with the Brewers in a small market and Mark Attanasio, who's just not as wealthy as most other owners. But I, for the most part, think it's a fine team building structure. I am intrigued at the idea, at least as a talk show topic, of possibly looking to trade Freddie Peralta. And I know Brewers fans won't want to hear that because they're playing the best ball that we've seen them play this year. And they've, won how many straight series, and they've won, 9 of 10 or 13 of 17 or whatever. And now they have an off day and a huge homestand. I'm not saying that the Brewers should trade Freddie Peralta now, today, but it might end up making sense. The problem is I think that would just be destructive to the clubhouse. You know what I mean? I think they could get away with trading Freddie Peralta and replacing his spot in the rotation with someone else who can give you 5 or 6 innings of somewhat clunky or just fine baseball. They can get that from other guys. I just don't know if they can get away with trading such a big part of the clubhouse and have the team continue, business as usual. I think if you trade Freddie Peralta at the deadline, from a talent perspective, you should be just fine. In the clubhouse, I don't know. So just put a bookmark there. Just put a little dog ear on the page of trading Freddie Peralta, because that's an idea or a possibility that, again, I remain intrigued by, and I think will make for an interesting talk show topic moving forward, especially if the Brewers revert to a version of themselves that we were seeing 3 weeks ago rather than what we've seen over the last week. So just keep our mind open, keep that in the back of our mind for now. The Brewers today, I know they won. They won 9-1. If you will allow me one complaint, just one. Why did Nick Mears, why did he pitch the 9th inning today? Someone explain this to me. Because I was watching the studio with Bill. He was doing a show at the WK2I studio downtown today before going to his cigar dinner, where he'll be tonight on French Island. So I'm sure some of you are going down there, which would be a good time. I was watching in studio and I turned it off after the top of the 9th. Because in the top of the 9th, the Brewers scored a couple runs and Yelich extended his hit streak. He had that single in the 9th, which now has extended his hit streak to either 11 games or 10 games. So that was an interesting part of today's game to follow. But after the top of the 9th, they went up 9-1 because Isaac Collins had that home run in the 9th, and that blew the game open to the point where I'm like, all right, if it was 5-1 in the 9th, maybe I'd pay attention. But 9-1, just throw some slap out there. Throw whatever current version of Tyler Alexander you have. Throw that guy out there. And then get into the off day and get home. And then I get over here to Flipside and I pop open my phone and I check Twitter a little bit just to make sure I didn't miss anything. And I'm like, wait, Nick Mears came in? Why'd Nick Mears pitch the 9th? This was almost beat for beat what the Brewers got last Friday from DL Hall and Quinn Priester. I think it's a really good setup. DL Hall went 3 innings, only gave up a hit, a couple strikeouts. The command wavered a little bit, but he was able to navigate out of a bases loaded jam. Threw 3 innings on 48 pitches. I'll take that. Only 23 strikes, which kind of blows. But again, the result was fine. Quinn Priester then gave you 5 innings and only 88 pitches. I thought he'd get the 9th or give the 9th to some slap. Why do you need to throw Nick Mears today? You're up by 8 runs. Now, to Pat Murphy's credit, or I guess to not be so hard on him, Nick Mears hadn't pitched since Sunday. So he hasn't really had to work this week. And before that, he hadn't pitched since last Wednesday. Now there's an off day mixed in there. So I think that's part of the reason why. And they've scored, which is great. Maybe Murph thought that he just needed some work. Maybe. I was just a little confused as to why with an 8-run lead, Pat Murphy felt the need to run Nick Mears out there. I don't know. Maybe he thought he needed work. There does come a point where it's like you just need your relievers to stay in a rhythm and you need to continue to give them work. So maybe Pat Murphy thought that Nick Mears had reached that point today. Maybe. I hope that's the explanation because I can't come up with another one as to why Nick Mears pitched with an 8-run lead today. A nitpick, I know. I like nitpicking the Brewers. I like nitpicking our baseball team. I think it's more fun. I think it's a more enjoyable way to follow the team and to talk about the team. So sorry if you're like, Grant, why are you complaining about the Brewers? They just won another series. They're playing their best ball of the year. Now they come home for a 10-game homestand. Now it's time to really buckle down and to see if this Brewers team can prove that they're worth contending and they're worth being in the mix the rest of this year. And here you are, saying that Freddie Peralta could be traded and complaining about Pat Murphy's bullpen usage. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry if that comes across as whiny or complaining. I'll wear that. I guess I could do a better job of that, but that's what's on my mind after last night and after today. So the Brewers win their 12th straight series, holy balls, against the Reds. They've won 9 of 10, 13 of 17, and now are in a really good spot with a pretty rested bullpen coming home for their longest homestand of the year, 10 games after an off day tomorrow. So they're in a good spot. If you have any thoughts on the Brewers, I'll take your texts. It's 608-321-1670. The live stream is up and running here at Flipside Pub and Grill. And if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, Twitter, at Wisco Grant, I'll flip the camera around here. Look at this view I got at the bar. Oh, yeah, big TV up there. And happy hour is underway and will be underway until 6. Technically, it started at 3. But you can get the 2-for-1 tap beers and house wines and rail mixers, something simple after work if you want to stop by with some coworkers or some friends. The $4.50 fish tacos today as well, not to mention $5 apps during happy hour. It's great. You can sit out on the patio. There'll be some volleyball and some beat bags going on. And we finally have a nice night. It was hot and rainy on Monday night when we got here. It was cold and rainy yesterday. Finally, a half-decent day of weather here in La Crosse. We'll be broadcasting live at Flipside Pub and Grill, just across from Menards, right down the hill from campus. So if you've, I don't know why I'm being so specific, because if you're going to stop by, you're a WK2I listener here in La Crosse, but it's right down the hill from campus, across from Menards. Very easy to find. Come down, get a drink. And again, I got a second headset, so you're more than welcome to join me if you want to give your take on the Brewers or the Packers, which is what I want to get into next. A lot of good audio provided by Mike Clemens. So we'll react from the latest up there in Green Bay with a lot of players and coaches speaking yesterday. That's where I want to pick up the show when we're back after a quick break.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels here. Are your two wheels revved up? Because here it comes. The Big River Rally, where the river meets the road. It rolls into La Crosse on June 27th and 28th. Join us for a weekend packed with action. Stunt shows, a killer bike show, food trucks, all kinds of awesome vendors. Friday, Rod's River Run, with Texas Hippie Coalition lighting up the stage that night. Then Saturday, it's the Big River Rally Ride. Miles and miles of pure freedom. Then Saturday night, Drowning Pool rocks the house. Grab your tickets right now. BigRiverRally.com. That's BigRiverRally.com, and I'll see you there.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back. We're live here at Flipside. We'll be here until 6 on the Crosse's north side. So WKTY listeners, stop on out. Enjoy their 2-for-1 happy hour. Get a tap beer, delicious cocktail, fish tacos. Their daily special. They have specials every single day. Fish tacos is Wednesday. I've forgotten what day it is a couple of times this week just because we haven't been in the studio. We've been out and about at Copeland Park yesterday, and Bill's been all over the place, so his show's been moving around. And we're up in Eau Claire tomorrow for a golf outing, which would be fun. I'm just losing track of what day it is. So luckily here at Flipside, it's easy because Wednesday means fish tacos. And again, happy hour until 6. There'll be volleyball and beanbags going out on this beautiful patio. It's the best space in town. And it was rainy and crummy yesterday, so I didn't really get to step out there even on breaks during Bill's show. So looking forward to that tonight. And again, if you're a WKTY listener, you want to stop by at any point between now and 6 o'clock, I got a second headset. I felt bad last time because when I was here, I didn't bring one. And I'm not able to take calls when we're remote, but I want to connect with you, and I want to talk Brewers, and I want to talk Packers, which is what we're going to do in a second. Your texts, welcome throughout the show at 608-321-1670. I know the Brewers just won another series, and they're in their best stretch of the year, hands down, and Yelich continued his hitting streak today, and not only did Churio hit a homer, but Monasterio with an RBI, and Isaac Collins with a home run, and Daz Cameron, of all people, with a home run. But my takeaways from last night and today are maybe the Brewers could get away with trading Freddie Peralta this year. And also, why is Nick Mears pitching the 9th inning with an 8-run lead? Maybe he needed the work. I looked at his game log. It's like, okay, he hadn't pitched since, such and such a day, and they've had off days. So maybe it's not the end of the world. I did just look at it sideways a bit, to be completely honest. Maybe that's my my nihilistic brain about the Brewers. John does ask, and this is a good question. John says, how many throws did Mears have in the 9th? I think he threw 5 pitches. Yes, I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, but allow me to please make my mountain out of a molehill. Yeah, 1 inning, 5 pitches, 5 strikes. Man, Freddie Peralta could learn a thing or two from that. Clement Mike on the stream is asking about Bill's first pitch last night. It went right over the plate. It was a little low. It was a good 2-strike pitch. Look at it that way. It was a good pitch. It didn't catch too much of the plate, but it was right down Wisconsin Avenue. He almost slipped because they put the beer batter cards in front of the mound, and then they have, someone who throws out a ceremonial first pitch. He picked the beer batter, and I think Bill's foot hit one of those cards, and there was a little slide. You're going to have a Brandon Woodruff situation where just trying to throw a simple rehab start, and all of a sudden you're taking line drives off the arms, which we can talk about later. I remain a little bit more skeptical about Brandon Woodruff's immediate future with the Brewers. I don't know where he's eventually going to end up. I don't know that he's ready to rejoin the rotation or even the bullpen and contribute at a high level. Maybe he is. And look, if there's anyone who's earned that opportunity, if there's anyone who deserves, despite maybe, a little dip in results or maybe the stuff has wavered a little bit, if there's anyone who still deserves an opportunity, it's Brandon Woodruff. I don't know. I remain skeptical, but then again, I'm not trying to be negative about the Brewers today. It's just my default gear. A couple of things that I want to talk about with the Packers. I want to pick something up that we were picking at last night. Lucas Van Ness. We were talking yesterday and reacting to his comments about breaking his thumb, and how that impacted him last year. And he talked about getting a mental block from that, right? And I'm not trying to be a jerk. That's a theme throughout the show tonight and through a lot of nights. Here's Lucas Van Ness kind of talking about his injury last year, just trying to set the table because I want Matt LaFleur's point of view on this. We're going to get to that in a minute. For those who missed the show last night, Lucas Van Ness talking about his thumb injury last year and how it impacted him.
Yeah, I wore a full cast all the way until about week 10 or 11. I'm not exactly sure, and then kind of had some lingering issues. So I wore it most of the season, which is kind of always limited to playing on just that right side of the defensive line. Playing defensive line, it's all with your hands, So when you're kind of limited to using the thumb, and a lot of our moves are originated from that. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever broken a thumb or a hand or anything. You kind of get a little bit of a mental block, and it's kind of taken me a little bit of time to gain some confidence again and utilizing my hand to its full extent.
So as we talked about last night, but for those who missed it, that answer just makes me a little nervous. Not necessarily the first half. The first half is understandable. If that limited where he could line up, that's understandable. You know what I mean? If they thought that Lucas Van Ness would be more impactful rushing on the inside versus rushing on the left or on the right, one of the big calling cards of him as a draft prospect, other than his size and speed and all the physical traits, one of the big pluses for him is he's versatile. And he can line up anywhere. And he lined up at a lot of different places at Iowa. And we just hadn't seen that in his rookie year. And we didn't really see it last year either. But part of that, as he explained, was because probably the broken thumb. Understandable. And I'm 100% okay with that. I don't buy the second half at all. And he's like, well, if you've ever broken a thumb or a finger, you get a little bit of a mental block. Now, I've never broken a thumb or a finger. But typically when you talk about players or just humans in general sustaining a big injury and needing to learn how to walk again. You hear musicians all the time who like OD hardcore on drugs or get way, way, way too drunk and they got to go into rehab, right? You hear stories of, well, they needed to learn how to sing again or they needed to learn how to play guitar again. Clapton was that way, right? Lots of musicians have experienced that. It wasn't because of a broken thumb. It was because they had a stroke or they went into a coma, or in the case of athletes, it was that their bone was sticking out of their thigh. You know what I mean? It was a gnarly, nasty injury. Aiden Hutchinson, for example, if he has a little bit of a down season this year and says, well, I needed to learn how to trust my leg again. There was a little bit of a mental block there. That's understandable because his leg bent sideways. That's a gnarly, nasty injury. Breaking a thumb, breaking anything and injuring yourself at all, like that's gnarly. And I'm certainly not out there laying my body on the line. But I don't know. You think about the best players, guys who are leading pass rushers or playmakers on successful, high-level contending teams. I don't know that a lot of those guys would be derailed by a broken thumb. They may be limited in where they can line up, and they can't grab and rip and pull guys. But a mental block because of a broken finger, I don't know. That's a little bit of a red flag. And that lowers my opinion or my hopes of what Lucas Van Ness maybe can be. Here's Ryan Wood questioning Matt LaFleur. I think Ryan Wood's been on a heater this week, asking the exact type of questions, the follow-up questions, pushing on the right types of questions. Here he is with Matt LaFleur yesterday asking a couple questions about Lucas Van Ness. Starting, I believe, the first question out of this is on his alignment. So if you're struggling to hear it, I think it'll come through pretty clear. But he's asking about Lucas Van Ness lining up inside because we saw that at practice, I believe, on Tuesday.
Van Ness take some reps inside today. I'm guessing if that's our first time seeing it, it's not the first time that's happened. Do you feel like that's a way to maybe unlock more of his game, to have him split his time inside and on the edge?
Yeah, I think situationally you can do that. I think in known passing situations, there's some thought around that. A lot of it's going to be just dependent upon everybody else as well. So Lucas has shown a lot of growth, and I'm excited to see him once we get pads on and really all those guys, how they compete.
Okay, so pause. You hear Matt LaFleur talking about, well, Lucas has shown a lot of growth. We're excited about Lucas, that type of thing. And Goody's talked about that too, which is why I love this follow-up from Ryan Wood. He said, what has he improved at? Why are you excited? Like, please expand. Tell us more on that.
Is the area of growth that you've seen from last season, this offseason so far?
I just think there's a different confidence level with him, and I think the whole group as a whole, just our ability to get off the football. I think we spent a lot of time on that, and those guys have taken the coaching and embraced it and have really worked at it.
confidence. Confidence. Now, I don't expect Matt LaFleur to spill like state secrets when asked about the improvements of Lucas Van Ness. I don't know that I really buy that answer, given we just heard Lucas Van Ness talk about how a broken finger or a broken thumb derailed him mentally. You know what I mean? I just don't know if those two things coincide. And by the way, again, great work by Ryan Wood to be like, okay, what has he shown you? Because Lucas Van Ness had a really disappointing season last year. He was injured. We give him some credit. But still, we get to this offseason. We listen to Brian Gutekunst speak. We remain super high on Lucas. We remain really, we have a lot of belief in Lucas. Can't wait to see what he does in year 3. And we just don't have a lot of evidence or a lot of ammo from his first 2 seasons to feel that way. There's a disconnect between how the Packers feel internally and what fans are seeing and thinking. And I'm glad that Ryan Wood and others kind of thought, like, tell us, but we want some specifics. Like, we want to know more exactly what you're seeing and what you're feeling confident about with Lucas Van Ness, because we're not trying to be mean here. I understand we're not behind closed doors, but we ain't seeing it. We're not seeing it. Vagabond John commenting on live stream. And I'm going to do my best because we can't take calls to make sure I get these comments and texts in. It says confidence in getting off the ball means he knows where he's going. Big deal for the D-line. That might be part of it too. You know, learning a new scheme, going from Joe Barry and what he was running to Jeff Hafley and what he was running. So that's fair. Changing a scheme from year 1 to year 2 and then breaking a thumb, like a lack of confidence and conviction in your rushing lanes and what you're doing. I buy that. But also, Vagabond John, it's not like they were moving him around. You can, on one hand, be like, yeah, well, I didn't get to rotate and I didn't get to, I kind of stayed in one spot. Well, if you stayed in one spot all year, I would think at some point, just by default, you would get some confidence rushing from that spot. You know what I mean? You can't tell me, well, he only got to line up in one spot. And then also tell me, well, he never had confidence in where he was. But if he was only lining up in one spot, you know what I mean? It's like me. If I only talked about the Brewers every day, like I should have confidence in talking about the Brewers every day. I can't complain that I can only talk about the Brewers, but then also say that I'm not comfortable talking about the Brewers. These two things are in direct contradiction. So I'm just hearing and seeing a lot of contradictions with Lucas Van Ness, what I'm seeing, what he's saying, what the Packers are saying, what the Packers are saying that they're seeing. I don't know. It just doesn't track. So I know the Packers have put a lot of stock into the guys that they have on the roster, as evidenced by going wide receiver, O-line, wide receiver. They won in day 2 in the draft. They clearly didn't think that pass rush was as pressing of a need as everyone else on the outside thought, which we kind of saw coming based on comments and how they operated in the draft. That doesn't totally surprise me, but I'm failing to see the reasons that the Packers feel that way. You know what I mean? Like what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing just isn't tracking. So we wait and see. Next week, they'll be in mandatory minicamp, presumably with everyone there. I don't know about Alton Jenkins as he's waiting for a contract, and I don't know about Jair. Jair's camp is saying that he's coming. I don't think the Packers will allow that to happen under this current contract. So I think next week will be another threshold, certainly for the Packers and Jair and what they want to do moving forward. We're going to take a break. We're live here at Flipside on La Crosse's north side, right across from Menards, and happy hours go until 6. So you can get 2-for-1s and $5 apps, and it's fish taco night because it's Wednesday. That's their daily special. So stop on out, have one, get some food, enjoy the patio outside. The Mai Tais that they make here are outstanding, so you can enjoy that as well. We'll continue to pick at the Packers, and if anyone wants to come and join me, I got a second headset as well. I see some listeners that I might try to recruit, so we'll get to that on the other side of this break. We're live at Flipside, back in just a couple minutes.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back. I'm going to continue talking a little Packers. It's nice to have the Packers content. I'm glad that we have Mike Clemens up there. Yesterday, the locker room was open, so all the coaches and mostly the players, Matt LaFleur on a presser, but then it's an open locker room, so a lot of the players had a chance to speak with the media. So we're getting ready for Bill's show earlier today. We're doing it at the WK2I studio, and I was thinking, okay, I'm going to have Mike Clemens to break down what he saw yesterday. And then we'll hear what Matt LaFleur had to say and a lot of other players, because I saw Keyshawn Nixon working with the media and Zach Tom, and they talked with Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary and Lucas Van Ness. And typically when that happens, I get a bajillion emails from Mike with all of the files of audio. And I got into the studio with Bill this morning and I looked and I had nothing. I didn't have a single thing. And I texted Mike I said, hey, Mike, I want to get some player audio on Bill's show today. If you don't have any, I can go and, pull it from YouTube or wherever, but that takes a little time. So let me know either way. And I want to read you what Mike said. To me. I said, I have a couple of sound bites for your hit at 10:30, but that's it. Let me check my spam folder. Because I'm like, we should have all this Packers audio. And Mike goes, let me know. Otherwise, I made a tremendous mistake. So his mistake was just sending all these emails and not including me or Bill. Producer Austin and Kate and Ebo got it. So then in a span of 2 minutes, and I quite literally mean 2 minutes, from 10:04 a.m. to 10:06 a.m., I get a Matt LaFleur file, a Romeo Dobbs file, a Lucas Van Ness file, Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, Zach Tom, Keyshawn Nix, and it just came in bang, 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 which normally the emails come in succession like that, but typically it's like 2 a.m. when Mike is sending emails. So I want to continue to pick over some comments from players and from Matt LaFleur as well. And we talked a little bit about Lucas Van Ness yesterday, because yesterday was the first opportunity that we had to hear from Kenny Clark and Lucas Van Ness about their injuries and how their injuries affected him last year. And Lucas Van Ness talked about his thumb and how that impacted him. And I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. I just don't really buy it. Here's Lucas Van Ness one more time for those who didn't hear it yesterday or just tuning in.
I wore a full cast all the way until about week 10 or 11. I'm not exactly sure. And then kind of had some lingering issues. So I wore it most of the season, which is kind of always limited to playing on just that right side of the defensive line. Playing defensive line, it's all with your hands, So when you're kind of limited to using the thumb.
First of all, I feel like I'm just nitpicking this guy, but then again, that's what Sports Talk Radio is for. Is it all hands? Because you talk about Kenny Clark and his foot. Well, it's all your lower half. Well, what is it? The answer is it's both. I just don't like what I'm being fed from Lucas Van Ness and others. I guess it's a personal thing. Now I'm just like a dog with a bone. I won't let it go.
A lot of our moves are originated from that. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever broken a thumb or a hand or anything. You kind of get a little bit of a mental block, and it's kind of taken me a little bit of time to gain some confidence again and utilizing my hand to its full extent.
I feel like if there was one body part that I could get confidence back pretty quickly, it would be my hand. I mean, it's like, wow, I use it every day for every single thing all the time. Again, if I break my leg and the bone is sticking out through the skin, like that would probably take a little time. Some physical therapy and some stretching, some workout, all that stuff. A finger, a thumb, I don't know. I feel like I get that back pretty quick, but what do I know? I don't play in the NFL. A little bit more from Matt LaFleur, something that I hinted at yesterday, and now I have the actual audio to back it up. Here's Matt Schneidman. Question and answer with Matt LaFleur about Zach Tom. And I'm going to pause this because there's a couple different parts to this question and answer that I want to pick at.
Zach Tom, such a steady option on the right side for you guys over the last couple of years?
Well, I think he can play any position. So it just happened to be that he kind of found his home at right tackle. But I think his versatility is one of the things.
It's a good spot to find a home at, by the way. Like, I would say Jordan Morgan is currently finding his home at right guard. I'd have a little higher hopes for someone with his physical profile and the fact that he's a first-round pick. Zach Tom was, fourth, fifth-round pick? To say that he found his home at right tackle, like that's, well, Rasheed Walker, I guess, found his home at left tackle. Like that's not finding a home. That's excelling at a really important position. I would say other players have found their homes. Just to minimize his right tackle play as finding a home. It's not inaccurate. It worked out that way, but I just think he deserves some credit for that. And I don't know if that wording is giving him his due. Then again, that's not why Matt LaFleur's up there. He's up there to fulfill a media obligation. So I'll stop nitpicking for another 15 seconds.
That makes him special. I think he can play all five, and there's not a lot of guys that can do that. But I would say that he's got the athleticism. I think he's a very intelligent football player, and he's played pretty consistent over the course of the last few years.
I'd say that he's been consistent. I think that Eagles game hopefully taught a little bit of a lesson to the Packers organization, and I think the organization took something away from that Eagles game, as evidenced by signing Aaron Banks, drafting Anthony Belton. Like, I think they felt they needed some more size and weight and strength. So I think that's a lesson too. But hopefully to someone like Zach Tom, who's fleeter of foot and lighter framed, hopefully that gives him an idea of, okay, like it's great to be athletic and it's great to be heady and versatile and be able to move in space. It's another thing to look down massive human beings and need to go mano-a-mano with them. And I don't think Zach Tom's ever going to be a right tackle that overpowers somebody, but he's got to be able to at least find that pitch in his arsenal, right? And have a stronger gear in his game. And maybe that was a lesson learned through the Eagles game. Here's the second question and answer. And I was sad listening to this today because I only saw this quote tweeted yesterday. I thought we were going to be able to have more fun with this, but here's the next question and answer from Matt Schneidman.
In that he's here at the voluntary stuff and kind of setting the tone for that group when, he's going into a contract year, he'd probably be justified to maybe not show up while he waits for a deal. What does it mean that he is here for this?
Yeah, I think that tells you how much it means to him. And, you always want everybody here this time of the year and understanding that it is voluntary. And, but yeah, that means a lot. I know for me, it means a lot to me.
Okay, so I first saw this yesterday, and we talked about it. We were live at Copeland Park. I saw the quote tweeted by Matt Schneidman saying, Matt LaFleur singing the praises of Zach Tom for being at a non-mandatory practice, even though he probably would be well within his right to hold out and wait for a new contract, because I think we all think Zach Tom should probably get a new contract. I think the Packers should just run that up to the podium, so to speak. Like they should just sign that extension. He's been a very solid right tackle. Could you get a little bit better? Yeah, I guess you could have prime Brian Bulaga or, fill in the blank, whoever. Like the Packers have had some great tackles through the years. Like you could maybe do a little bit better than Zach Tom, but I don't know that you need to overthink this one. Just give him a contract. I think the Packers will. But this was presented yesterday, at least where I saw it on Twitter, of Matt LaFleur singing the praises of Zach Tom because he's there. And man, he certainly wouldn't have to be because he could have a gripe about a new contract. And I thought Matt LaFleur brought that up unprompted. I thought he went there unprompted, which is very juicy for lots of reasons. One, because Matt LaFleur is almost coming out and admitting in that process that the Packers should extend him, which is interesting. And also indirectly or very loosely, maybe not criticizing Elton Jenkins, but if you're gonna compliment one guy for showing up when he wants a new deal, even indirectly or even unintentionally, you're criticizing the guy who's doing the opposite. Elton Jenkins not showing up because he wants a new deal. And I'm like, that's juicy. That's good. That's a piece of sound that we can play with and we can really. But then I heard that Matt Schneidman basically said, hey, talk about Zach Tom. He wouldn't have to be here. Talk about why it's good that he's here. This is the second half of that one more time. And I didn't like that.
Into a contract year, he'd probably be justified to maybe not show up while he waits for a deal. What does it mean that he is here for this?
Yeah, I think this
is just a leading question. That's not juicy. That's somebody, and I don't know if Matt Schneidman's writing a Zach Tom story, but that's just someone very specifically asking a coach to talk about something. I thought he went there unprompted, and I'm like, oh boy, this is going to go hard on sports radio because it's got implications for the Packers and the way that they're handling contracts. It's got implications for Zach Tom, and it's also got implications for Elton Jenkins. Like if you're going to build up one guy for attending non-mandatory minicamp, even though he wants a new deal, even unintentionally or indirectly, you're ripping the guy who's not doing that. But that's not really what Matt LaFleur is doing because, again, it was a very direct leading question. So I'll lay down my saber on that. A couple of texts, 608-321-1670. Coyote Mike says, does the Flipside still offer their free buttered popcorn? And then you have a Brewers text. I'll address the first half of this first. Yes, they do. And Bill realized this yesterday. I think, and I can't see it directly from where I am, I think that they have like a crock pot of butter and a ladle. So you can get a little boat of popcorn and then you can ladle it on. It's the popcorn version of what you would do with sweet corn, right? When you would melt a pot of butter and then dip the cob in. Yeah, they have free popcorn. In fact, now I might go get some over this break. On the Brewers, he says, four-bagger Freddie looks so sharp in the first few innings, but he always seems to have ill-timed lapses. He is almost always good for giving up 1 to 2 home runs, and usually in the early innings, he might be a valuable trade asset if the right circumstances come about. Doubtful this season, though. As much as I was disappointed when Wade Miley did not re-sign with Milwaukee, today I think we saw why the Brewers didn't ask him back. The crew teed off on him. Yeah, they kind of did. It didn't really result in many runs, but they did have success against Wade Miley. If Cincy had any hope of a comeback win today, Miley's poor performance wiped that out. Still like the guy, though. Have fun in the Crosse. Yeah, yes, very correct on Wade Miley. They loaded the bases, and I think they scored 1 run, but they hit him hard a couple of times. It just didn't result in I think more than 1 run in that inning. maybe Isaac Collins. Did he come back out for the 9th? Again, that's kind of when I was starting to tune the game out. Now I'll still find a way to complain about Nick Mears pitching the 9th, but he only threw 5 pitches and off day tomorrow, and he probably needs to work. So fair. I think I'm leaving the door open, and we'll probably talk about it more down the line, for a Freddie Peralta trade, because Freddie Peralta has not been head and shoulders better than Chad Patrick or Quinn Priester, although he's had the help of an opener, but okay, I'll take it. He's provided them length in both of his last 2 outings. He hasn't been better in the aggregate this season, that much better than Quintana. Logan Henderson was better than Freddie Peralta. So my point is, you could trade Freddie Peralta and really, really get a nice return from a player who you can pretty easily replace internally. The problem is, if this team has any shot or any hope of staying in the mix and being competitive down the stretch, it's a pretty tough gut punch to the locker room, because Freddie's been there a long time and is no doubt probably one of the more vocal leaders of this team. So it would be on some level maybe an attempt at a second Josh Hader trade. And I just don't know if the Brewers have the stomach for it. Now, if they start losing a lot more over the next month, well, then they might just become sellers in earnest, and we can talk about a Freddie Peralta trade. I still think it might make sense even if they're in the mix, but I understand that people are gun-shy about trades like that because of Josh Hader, and I would imagine the Brewers are gun-shy as well. One more segment in hour number 1. We'll come back. We're broadcasting live here at Flipside on La Crosse's north side, right across from Menards. 2-for-1 happy hour until 6 o'clock. They're also serving breakfast 6 days a week, so if you're listening to this, you're like, well, I can't make it tonight, but that's a good point, Grant. I should go to Flipside before too long. Well, you could stop by now. Tuesday through Sunday, they serve breakfast, and I had Dave's love child, the Krabby Dave, the other day. Holy crap, that thing was, I had one of those yesterday. Had some pancakes on the side. That thing was outstanding. So I would recommend, and not to mention their patio and the space for volleyball and beanbags is no doubt the best in town. So if not tonight during the show, stop on out sometime for a happy hour after work or for breakfast. They do an early morning happy hour as well. Between 8 and 10, so you can take advantage of that earlier on in the day if you want to start early, especially on the weekends where they've always served breakfast, but now available the rest of the week as well, if that interests you, and it should. We'll wrap hour number 1 of the show coming up next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. Last couple minutes here before we wrap up hour number one. We'll get an update from Zach Heilprin. More Packers audio. We'll continue to pick at the Brewers. And may have mentioned the NHL last night. How about that? Not something that normally makes its way into the show rundown, but the Stanley Cup Finals starting tonight. I mean, we're waiting until tomorrow night for the NBA Finals to start. I'm going to watch Oilers and Panthers. And as I said last night, like, this is Cavs Warriors-ish. Cavs Warriors 4 straight years was probably not ideal for the NBA nerds, for the people who, you know, freebase Bill Simmons in the low post and, like, you know, grind film, league pass, those types of folks. Like, probably not the ideal situation to have the same 3 or 4 teams or 3 or 4 years with the same teams in the finals. But for casuals, it's great. For people who want to drop in and watch the most important games, the most important time of the year, it's perfect for those folks. And that is me. With hockey. Like, I'm not going to be in it all throughout the regular season, mostly because we don't have a team, but I'm also watching the Bucks or I'm watching football or Badgers basketball. So now that we're to the Stanley Cup Finals, I can just jump right in and pick up right where we left off last year. Like, I'm all about that. And I'm torn. As an American and as a patriot, I want to cheer for the Panthers because I don't want a Canadian team to win. This is the National Hockey League should be America's league, right? Even though there's a bunch of Canadian teams, and I'm not anti-Canada, but it's like I should cheer for my country, should cheer for a state in my country, right? It would also be the balls to see McDavid win one. Like, I just think it's lame when the best player in the sport doesn't have any hardware. Then you could look at Mike Trout in baseball, although I don't know that a lot of people lose sleep over that, but I think for a long time, lots of baseball nerds did. I don't want McDavid to end up in that spot because it's lame. Because then in 20 years, we got to listen to conversations on sports TV and sports radio about, wow, McDavid was great, but what did he have a win? Like, oh, God, okay. Well, I don't really want to endure that. So I have half a mind to cheer for both teams in the finals, which means I can't lose. Very excited to watch that. That'll start tonight. I have an NBA thought for you as well in hour number 2. I'll be brief, but Adam Silver went on Fox Sports 1 this morning, on with Parkins and Carton on Breakfast Ball, and basically compared the NBA to the NFL in making a point that I agree with, but I thought he made the point very poorly. So I think Adam Silver, who has had good stretches as the NBA commissioner, I don't know that I think there's plenty of things about the league that have been left to be desired the last couple of years. And I'm not talking about the All-Star game. I don't care about the All-Star game. That's not how you should judge a league, but he's taken a lot of slings and arrows for that. So I'll play you a comment from Adam Silver. We can continue to talk about the Brewers in hour number 2. I might be a little loined up at the idea of a Freddie Peralta trade, and I can kind of explain that further when we come back. I know the Brewers are playing their best ball of the year, and they got an off day tomorrow, the longest homestand of the year, so the vibe should be high. The vibes can be high. My argument is I think you can get away with trading Freddie Peralta instead of losing him for nothing down the line, and I don't know that the team's really going to miss a beat. The clubhouse might. And that's tricky. And we know that from the hater trade. So I want to continue to pick at that. And more audio from the open locker room yesterday with the Packers and OTAs, courtesy of Mike Clemens. So all that coming up. We're live here at Flipside Pub and Grill, the north side of La Crosse. WK2I listeners, stop out for happy hour. The second half of the Wisco Sports Show coming up next.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Brewers have won 9 of the last 10 games. That's after a 9-1 rout of the Reds this afternoon down in Cincinnati. Milwaukee did much of its damage via the long ball. Jackson Churio had a 2-run blast in the 5th to give the Crew a 3-0 lead. Daz Cameron had his own 2-run shot in the 6th, and Isaac Collins capped the Brewers scoring in the 9th with a 3-run bomb. Churio ended up with 3 hits. Reese Hoskins and Bryce Terang each had a pair. The offense more than enough for Milwaukee's pitching staff. D.L. Hall got the start, going 3 scoreless innings. Then Quinn Priester came on for the next 5, allowing just the 1 run on 2 hits while striking out 4. He got the win to improve to 3-2 on the year and has now posted a 2.31 ERA over his last 6 games. The win allowed the Brewers to take 2 of 3 in the series, their 12th straight series win over the Reds. It meant a 5-1 road trip and a 9-1 record of the last 10 games. It has them a season-best 5 games above 500 and just a half game back of St. Louis for second place in the NL Central. Milwaukee will get tomorrow off before opening up a weekend series against San Diego at American Family Field on Friday.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
They believe in protecting the families and children in our farming communities. Kids love to be included in the daily farm activities, but accidents can happen quickly. Reduce the chance of injury by making sure your farm is a safe environment for adults and kids. Learn more at ruralmutual.com.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Packers have just 1 day left of OTAs. Then it's just a 3-day mandatory minicamp next week to close out the offseason. And Wisconsin has landed a 3-star tight end in the class of 2026. Michigan product Jack Janda became the second tight end to commit this week. Chose the Badgers over offers from Michigan State and Stanford, among others. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil.
Speaking of Churio, fly ball out to right, sending Benson back. He is staring and gone. Jackson Churio hits his 10th home run of the season, and the Brewers jump out to a 3-0 lead. They're now 12-8 against them. 3-2, hammered out towards left center field, and it is gone for Daz Cameron. Isaac Collins out to left field and deep, and it is gone for Collins.
Very pleased with those reserves, so to speak, Crosse and Monasterio, Gas Cameron. They had good games, they're hungry to play, and that's what it's about. We expect those guys to go and do that.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
A montage of the 3 home runs the Brewers hit today, and then Pat Murphy talking about it after the game. It's always a funny thing when you listen to coaches, especially, but you'll get this from star players in basketball and in baseball. They're always hesitant to call players role players. As fans, role player is almost a badge of honor, like in the NBA. Oh, 3-and-D, he's such a good role player. Or I think coaches or teammates would just consider a guy like that, he's just a good player. Not a role player, because it almost sounds derogatory, but again, I think for fans, role player is not derogatory in some cases. Like, we prefer role players because they understand their role and they play within themselves and they catch and shoot when they're supposed to and they stay out of the way when they're not supposed to. But you hear Murphy in that intro, in that comment from after the game today, like reserves, so to speak. Like he's not even comfortable calling Daz Cameron or Isaac Collins a reserve. Isaac Collins actually played a good amount. Daz Cameron not playing a whole lot, at least up until this weekend. He got some time against Philly and starting on a getaway today. A day game after a night game, especially with an off day tomorrow and a big homestand. Contreras got the day off, and he needs it. I think it's a little bit of a half measure because Contreras has a broken finger, and while giving him a day off will maybe help him rest a little bit, and it'll help him be less fatigued and physically worn down, it's not really going to help what's ailing him, which is a broken finger, which it still blows me away a little bit that he's playing through it. And he's had plenty of good nights, but the power's mostly disappeared, and it's just a bummer that his finger is broken because the Brewers are in such an impossible spot. So we can continue to talk Brewers. I want to get back to the Packers. Some audio from OTAs yesterday, courtesy of Mike Clemens up in Green Bay. So we'll get to that. It's the Wisco Sports Show, and we're live here at Flipside Pub and Grill on the north side of La Crosse. Bill was here yesterday. I was here the end of April, I think, and it's always fun to do a show here. It's one of my favorite places. And you can come and enjoy the happy hour, the 2-for-1 drinks, the $5 apps, and the Wednesday special is fish tacos as well. So you can get fish tacos for $4.50. And I believe I see some volleyball players, people showing up for league outside. Their space outside is just excellent. They got the bar out there and the big patio, and you get the Mai Tais. You can get them individually. You can get a pitcher. You can even get them to go, actually. Maybe I'll get some of that and I can drink it in the RV as Bill drives us up to Eau Claire later tonight. Maybe. We'll see. It'd be a good idea. I want to make sure I patronize Flipside in some way. I'm going to get some food, maybe a big jug of Mai Tai to go. We were talking before the break, and I opened the show back at 4 o'clock, talking about last night's game and how Freddie was fine. If you were to just look at his final line, you'd say, okay, that's a pretty good start. 6 innings, 3 earned runs on 7 hits. Not great, but, Freddie's somebody who's going to give up some contact, but the next thing, he'll come back and strike out the next guy. That's the type of pitcher that he is. Fly balls and strikeouts. He had 9 strikeouts to 3 walks, which doesn't seem that bad. In fact, that seems good. But if you watched the game, if you used your eyeballs and a television last night to watch the game, you're like, yeah, there's something there where it's like, it's far from perfect, right? He just labors so much. He has to work so hard, and he wastes so many pitches. And I don't think the Brewers should trade him necessarily because it drives me up a wall to watch him. Although, okay, maybe that's part of it. I just think right now, and we've talked about this throughout the week, Peralta, Priester, Patrick, Quintana, Savali, Woodruff's on the mend. I'd like to think, even though he took a liner off his elbow, hopefully that doesn't derail him too much and you get an idea of what he can or can't do over the next month. Nestor Cortez, I think at some point will be back this season. Logan Henderson remains an option. You just have a lot of bodies. And with the long, relief options or opener options or piggyback options in Aaron Ashby and in DL Hall, you just got a lot of flexibility. You have a lot of pitching. And I know. Well, you could never have enough pitching. And I understand that, right? As soon as you try to get cute and you trade some pitching depth for an extra batter, an extra hitter, well, then another one of your pitchers is going to go down. And all of a sudden you will need pitches. So I understand. I think 99% of the time, you can't have enough pitching. I'm wondering if this is one of the 1%ers where, do you need Savali? Do you still need this guy? And I think Freddie Peralta is an interesting potential trade piece. Even if the Brewers keep winning, because I think you can plug one of those other options into his spot and be just fine. Freddie is a fine pitcher. I don't think he's hurting this team. I think he's been fine, but they have a lot of guys who are fine to pretty good, to solid, to even occasionally great. I think you could swap one of those guys into the rotation, trade away Freddie Peralta, and get some really nice value for a team that wants a proven guy with high-end, top-of-the-rotation stuff, and you could keep on chugging. Now, the problem is if the Brewers keep playing like this and they make up any ground in the division or any ground in the wild card race, it's really hard on the clubhouse. You know what I mean? Now they trade Savali, I don't think that's going to kill the clubhouse. He's he got here last year via trade. He's not, I think, one of your core guys or one of your most vocal leaders. Freddie is one of your most vocal leaders, and he's a core guy, and he's been there a long time. So I think you might have an issue getting away with that. I think you might have an issue trading away Freddie Peralta and then looking all the other guys in the eye and saying, no, but we're going to be good. We're going to keep on chugging. You know what I mean? So it remains intriguing to me as an idea. And I'm going to continue probably to bring it up on the air, especially if the Brewers fall off and start to look like the team they did, 3 or 4 weeks ago. But even if they keep winning, I think it remains an interesting possibility. And if nothing else, maybe a potential bit of shrewd team building, let's say. 608-321-1670. I'll take your texts throughout the show, and I'll get to your comments on the live stream as well, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. The live stream is up and running over there. And if I can flip the camera around here, you can see bars filling up. Happy hour is happening. 2 for 1s. Come get a delicious glass of tap beer. I also have some drink chips. I gave one to Eric on I-90. I got a couple left, courtesy of Mississippi Drew yesterday. And I'll probably use one of these before the end of the night. But I got 2 $5 drink chips. I got a 6er and I got a 7. 2 blues, a green, and a yellow. Hell yeah. So I got a drink chip for you if you want to come and enjoy happy hour, get a $5 app, or get the fish tacos as well. A little more Packers audio to pick throughout the show, and I think I might be nitpicking Lucas Van Ness a little bit. Wally in Wisconsin sent a nice text. Now my text line isn't loading. He says, as a former college basketball player, I understand where Lucas Van Ness is coming from. A sprained ankle isn't a major injury, but coming back from one is tough. You think about how your body is going to react to movement, and it takes you away from the zone until it's fully healed. You think about it. And this has been an ongoing discussion since yesterday. Lucas Van Ness's thumb. I did not like what he had to say. Well, I got a little bit of a mental block. I understand Paul George getting a mental block because his leg pointed the wrong way. Or I would understand a mental block from Aiden Hutchinson because his leg broke at the shin, like Conor McGregor in his last fight. I'd get a mental block over that. I think most athletes would. That's pretty gnarly and that's difficult. A broken hand, I understand that would give you issues playing on the field and it might limit your alignment. Lucas Van Ness talked about that. I don't love the idea that he got a mental block from that. That worries me just a bit. I worry about his mentals and his ceiling to be a high-level psychopath as an edge rusher. Like, I think you need to be a little bit of a psychopath. Not saying that an injury wouldn't hamper players. Of course, it's understandable. I'm just trying to nitpick a little bit and pick through some of the commentary and some of the little different things that have been mentioned in open locker room yesterday with Matt LaFleur up there. Here's a very, I guess, down the middle statement from Matt LaFleur about the current state of the team. This is off of Mike Clemens' question, saying with mandatory minicamp next week, which is where we will turn our eyes before too long because we're going to see if Elton Jenkins shows up. We're going to see if Jair Alexander shows up as promised, right? He said, I'm going to come even without a new contract. I'm going to be there. Well, we'll see. Here's Mike Clemens asking Matt LaFleur, and here's his answer about the state of the team and how you feel about things moving into mandatory practices next week.
I think that although, we're still relatively young, our guys are experienced. And I think that, they've been in a lot of these situations. So, it's just how fast can we get the new guys and some of the younger players that we're going to obviously rely on. How fast can we get them up to speed and acclimated to what we're trying to get done?
So I was a fan of this, and Bill mentioned this earlier today too. Anytime that Packers coaches or players or Brian Gutekunst even himself has mentioned, well, we've been the youngest team in football. That really wears on Bill. And I think it wears on a lot of Packers fans because you're just tired of hearing it. You know what I mean? The goal is not to be the youngest team in football. The goal is to win a championship or be closer to winning a championship, at least than they have been recently, right? So I think a lot of people hear youngest team in football, and it's like nails on a chalkboard. I want to stop hearing that, or I want to stop hearing the Packers brag about that and using that as a talking point, right? Well, Matt LaFleur in that answer, and let's listen to it one more time, saying, yeah, we're a young team, but we're experienced, and they've been through big games.
I think that although, we're still relatively young, our guys are experienced. And I think that, they've been in a lot of these situations. So, it's just how fast can we get the new guys and some of the younger players that we're going to obviously rely on. How fast can we get them up to speed and acclimated to what we're trying to get done?
And by the way, I think that's true of Matt LaFleur too, which is why last season was disappointing for me. I thought he really regressed last year. I'm not surprised that Jordan Love had a bit of a sophomore slump or that Jaden Reed or Dontavian Wicks didn't take big leaps in year number 2. I expect improvement in year 3, but maybe we expected too much too fast in year 2. I understand all of that. That's all fine and good. I think I was most disappointed at the regression and the downward, I guess, performance last year of Matt LaFleur. I thought he really regressed last year because he's been in the league longer than just about everybody. And he's been tenured with the Packers longer than just about everybody who's not, let's see, Tomlin, Reed, Shanahan. Now, there's some other coaches who've been around the block like McCarthy and Pete Carroll, but they haven't been in their current spots as long as Matt LaFleur has been in his. And Harbaugh in Baltimore would certainly be another one. There's probably one or two that I'm missing who have been with their respective teams for a long time. The point is Matt LaFleur's up there, right? Like, and not only is he been with his team about as long as anybody else, he's also from year number 1 experienced high-level playoff games, NFC championship games. He's been in a position where his team is fighting and scratching and clawing to make the postseason down the stretch. That's an experience that a lot of coaches haven't gone through. They won a playoff game on the road last year. They lost a playoff game on the road. They played an Eagles team that was an absolute wagon on the road last year. They've played internationally. They've had early buys. They've had late buys. Like Matt LaFleur in his 6 or 7 years now as head coach of the Green Bay Packers, which is no small number. But even in those 5 or 6 or 7 years, I think he's experienced about as much as one could possibly experience. So when Matt LaFleur says, yeah, we're a young team, but we're an experienced team, I think that extends to the coaching staff. I think that extends to the head coach as well. And I know Packers fans are just sick and tired of hearing about how they're the youngest team in football. I just don't think that moves the needle. I don't think that moves the meter for Packers fans anymore. And Rick on the live stream says it's year 7. Yeah, I always lose track, but his first year was 2019. So this will be year 7. He just finished year 6, I think, if I'm counting correctly. Q, who listens in Milwaukee, says if Lucas Van Ness is the missing piece, this feels like a gap year. I know he made big free agency moves last year, but they clearly don't feel the 2025 roster has what it takes, or they would have made more moves. I don't think I agree with that at all. I think they believe in Lucas Van Ness, and they believe in that defensive line and that pass rush. I don't think this is a gap year at all. Last year, they spent a pile of money on Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs, and now they spent big-time money on a left guard and more money on a corner. I don't think it's a gap year at all. I don't exactly know what tree you're barking up. Now, you can feel like this team has a limit. If you view this as, well, this is going to be a gap year because their pass rush isn't good enough because Lucas Van Ness isn't good enough, fine. That's fine. And you might just be right. I have legit reservations about how good this pass rush can be and if it can be good enough. Matt LaFleur talked about that today, so we'll get to that on the other side of the break. You can feel that way. If the Packers feel that way, they're nuts. And they've done a really poor job managing their roster and their resources. Because if you believe this year is a gap year, then don't spend all that money on Aaron Banks. Don't spend all that money on Josh Jacobs last year. You know what I mean? Like, you can't believe that this is a gap year. And I also don't know that there's such a thing as a gap year in the NFL unless you are moving on from an all-time great quarterback or you've moved on to a new coach. Like, unless you've made significant personnel changes at quarterback or at head coach or general manager, head coach, unless the whole regime is brand new and you're truly rebuilding, then there's such a thing as a gap year. But that's not even a gap year so much as it is a rebuild or a reset. Gap years don't really exist in the NFL. Every team is under a ton of pressure and every coach is under a ton of pressure to win constantly, all the time. So no, I don't think it's a gap year. You might believe that there's a ceiling on this team because of their lack of talent and maybe elite options at pass rush. That's fine. I'm telling you, I don't think the Packers feel that way at all. And we'll see if they're proven to be right or wrong. We'll come back in just a couple minutes. We're broadcasting live here at Flipside. The happy hour is kind of popping. And the patio is starting to fill up too with volleyballers and beanbaggers and outside sunshine enjoyers, maybe ordering a Mai Tai out there. And 2-for-1 is going to be running until 6 o'clock till the end of the show because happy hour is nightly, 3 to 6, $5 apps. And today's daily special is fish tacos as well. So you can come and enjoy that for $4.50. Very refreshing, very delicious. 10 out of 10 would recommend. I'd also recommend their breakfast. I had that yesterday, but unless maybe you slip a bribe to your server or cook, that's not going to be on the table for tonight, but maybe another time. So we'll continue the show, the Wisco Sports Show, live at Flipside Pub and Grill on La Crosse's north side next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Big River Rally coming to La Crosse, Wisconsin, June 27th and 28th. Don't miss the excitement on the main stage Friday night. It's Texas Hippie Coalition. And Saturday night drowning pool. Tickets are on sale now. Want more? Follow Big River Rally on social or go to BigRiverRally.com.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back. Broadcast live here at Flipside from the north side of Crosse. Eric on I-90 was here. I tried to wrangle him onto the show. He's busy. He likes to operate. You know, Eric is an international man of mystery. But Eric would tell you, he'd tell you this is the north side of La Crosse, but barely the line of demarcation. I can't remember what he said. If it was the viaduct or whatever street. I don't think it was La Crosse Street. Something around West Ave. It is on the north side, but it's not too far. So if you're on the south side or anywhere on campus, it's right down the hill, just across from Menards. We'd love to have you. 2-for-1 happy hour tonight until 6 o'clock. And every weeknight, 3 to 6, the happy hour with 2-for-1 house wines, tap beer, rail mixers, $5 apps. And because it's Wednesday tonight, the daily special is fish tacos, which fits the weather. We finally have some sun after it was so crummy yesterday. Not that kept people out of Copeland Park last night for the Loggers game. It was packed, which was a blast and a half. And Bill threw a strike as a first pitch. How about that? I'm going to get to a comment from Matt LaFleur about the pass rush that kind of builds on what we were talking about last time. And Derek comments, and I want to get to this later. How do you feel about Adam Silver saying the 2026 NBA All-Star game will be Team USA versus Team Europe? There are very few things that I care about less than All-Star games. This has become quite a hanging point for Adam Silver. And I wonder if Roger Goodell ever looks at the NBA and Adam Silver in that situation, wonders, my God, why do they care about the All-Star game so much? Like, no one holds the Pro Bowl against Roger Goodell. People complain about the Pro Bowl and they call it lame, but they understand that it's an All-Star game, and I think for the most part, people get it. With the NBA, it's like this referendum on the morality of the league, the moral fiber and fabric, quite literally, of the game in the NBA. And I bet Adam Silver sometimes just like, why do people care so much about this? Team USA versus a world team, that would be interesting. Is that going to make them compete harder? Is that going to make it a more compelling basketball game? I guess I'm confused as to exactly what NBA fans want. Do they want a hard-fought, balls-to-the-walls, wire-to-wire NBA game? When are you seeing that in the regular season anyways? If you're not getting that in actual regular season games that count, and you want that in an all-star game? I don't know. So I didn't hear that part of the Adam Silver interview. I heard Adam Silver on Breakfast Ball this morning, which I assume it's from the same interview. Maybe he did a couple of the New York shows. I don't know if he's on First Things First this afternoon or what with FS1. He was maybe doing the rounds. I heard him make an NFL comparison. This is very interesting. Kind of talking about how this NBA Finals is going to be two very small markets and how that'll impact the league. And so I want to get to that towards the end of the show. For now, put a pin in that for a little bit. For now, I want to stick with the Packers. Matt LaFleur talking about, basically, this is from a Jason Wilde prompt, a Jason Wilde question, talking about rushing the passer. And Matt LaFleur is very clear at the end of last season. Yeah, we wanted to rush with 4 and then play zone coverage, and everybody's eyes are going to be on the quarterback. That's what they wanted to do, and that's not what they were able to do. So Matt LaFleur was asked, I believe, by Jason Wilde earlier today, like, did you learn something about having to change up your strategy? Do you think you came away as a better coach, or do you think you have a better understanding of your team after last year, maybe having to make some adjustments that you didn't anticipate?
Like I said before, we're kind of going into this thinking that we're going to rush 4 and play a lot of zone coverage, give the guys the ability to look at the quarterback and play off the quarterback's intentions and really break on the ball. I think a lot of teams that generate a lot of takeaways tend to do it that way. It's more vision-based. And then we morphed from that. I mean, a lot of the coverage principles were similar, but just how we generated pressure was different. And I think in today's world of football, I mean, the more versatility you show, it doesn't matter what phase we're talking about, but the more versatility, I think it's harder to prepare for. I think the challenge is, it's just like there's a fine line in terms of what is too much. So yeah, you want to be versatile, but you want to get good at a lot of at what you do as well. So the more you do, the less time you have to have meaningful reps at it. So it's finding that balance there in terms of what is enough flexibility.
I'm bored. I'm just going to cut it off. I just get so bored listening to that. The only reason that I play that and why I circled it when I was listening earlier, something that I want to play on the show, is Matt LaFleur cannot stop himself from bringing up, well, last year what we wanted to do was rush 4 and play man coverage, which I don't remember man coverage being a big selling point of Jeff Hafley. I thought he liked press. I thought he liked playing press man. He liked being aggressive on the line of scrimmage. I don't know whatever happened to that. But Matt LaFleur would tell you, we wanted to rush 4, and we wanted to play man, or we wanted to rush 4, and then we want to play zone. And we want to, and I'm just kind of over it. You know what I mean? If you wanted to do that so badly, then you would have made some personnel adjustments this offseason that would allow you to do that, right? If the idea was last year to rush 4 and get home consistently, and then, build everything on the back end from linebackers to corners to safeties to build that accordingly, well, then this offseason, shouldn't you have beefed up the pass rush? Because last year wasn't good enough. And you could tell me Lucas Van Ness hurt his thumb, but Lucas Van Ness has never proven anything, even when he was healthy as a rookie. Developmental project. He gets time, but that's not that's not a plan. That's a wish list. Lucas Van Ness figuring it out. Now, I think Kenny Clark with a healthy toe will probably be better this year. But if the goal is Matt LaFleur is insistent on telling us, listen to the first part of that answer again.
Like I said before, we were kind of going into this thinking that we're going to rush 4 and play a lot of zone coverage, give the guys the ability to look at the quarterback and play off the quarterback's intentions and really break on the ball. I think a lot of teams that generate a lot of takeaways tend to do it that way.
Okay, but they generated a lot of takeaways last year and they did it completely differently. So I'm just about done hearing Matt LaFleur talk about, well, we wanted to do this and what we ultimately ended up doing was different. To be fair to Matt LaFleur, he was asked about it directly. So so what's he supposed to say? He's supposed to not answer the question. I'm just a little sick of, well, we wanted to do this last year. We weren't able to do it. Okay, well, if it was still your intention to do it that way and you still wanted to do it that way, then your offseason strategy kind of sucked, because you didn't add to the defensive line, whether it be interior, exterior, nose tackle. You didn't add to it at all. You went wide receiver, O-line, wide receiver, and then on day 3 you addressed it, and you hope that some of those guys help, whether it's Barron Sorrell or whoever, you hope, but it's not a super aggressive way to improve an area of your team that clearly wasn't as good as you expected last year, right? And I'll go back to playing something that we played an hour ago for those who have tuned in recently. I thought Ryan Wood knocked it out of the park, asking Matt LaFleur about Lucas Van Ness, and then asking him a direct follow-up after the first answer to be like, okay, so what specifically gives you promise on Lucas Van Ness? Let's listen to this exchange again.
Van Ness take some reps inside today. I'm guessing if that's our first time seeing it, it's not the first time that's happened. Do you feel like that's a way to maybe unlock more of his game, to have him split his time inside and on the edge?
Yeah, I think situationally you can do that. I think in known passing situations, there's some thought around that. A lot of it's going to be just dependent upon everybody else as well. So Lucas has shown a lot of growth, and I'm excited to see him once we get pads on and really all those guys, how they compete.
Well, he talked, the first part of that, he talked about obvious passing situations, like, well, maybe in this and that. But the point is, in no situation so far have they really moved Lucas Van Ness to the interior. Part of that might have been the thumb last year. And Lucas talked directly about that when he spoke with reporters too. But it's the second half of the answer from Ryan Wood that I really liked, or the second question.
Biggest area of growth that you've seen from last season?
Tell us specifically.
I just think there's a different confidence level with him, and I think the whole group as a whole, just our ability to get off the football. I think we spent a lot of time on that, and those guys have taken the coaching, and embraced it and have really worked at it.
It's not really a great answer. And Bill has been barking up this tree for 3 months. Like, what specifically would someone specifically ask Brian Gutekunst? Would someone specifically ask Matt LaFleur, what is it about Lucas Van Ness? Tell us a concrete thing. You say you're still believing and you're still excited and yada, yada, yada. That's great. Can you give us a little red meat on that topic? Can you give us a little something on that front? Because, yeah, we hope so, too. He was a project of a draft pick, and he's got all the traits. That's why he was a top 15 selection. But can you tell us something specifically that you've seen behind closed doors or heard behind closed doors? Because it's not really making sense to us on the outside. And I don't know that answer really quenches my thirst on that subject, but I give Ryan Wood a lot of credit. I love Ryan Wood. I give him a lot of credit for asking that follow-up and pushing just a little bit more on that. It's like, okay, can you give us something? Over on the live stream, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, you guys are talking about how the Pro Bowl used to be real. Yeah, Pro Bowl, sure. Pro Bowl used to be a legit thing. It's not anymore, and I don't think anyone is bemoaning that. Does anyone sit around in 2025 and is like, I remember when the Pro Bowl was great. I wish it was still great. I wish these guys were blowing each other's heads off in the Pro Bowl. Like, really? It's on a Saturday or a Sunday before the Super. It's on an off week. Is anyone really turning to the Pro Bowl for substantive, energetic entertainment? I watch the Major League Baseball All-Star Game for that because it's the best players who are still getting to play a very legitimate, very real version of baseball, because risk for injury in baseball is actually probably greater when you take it easy and you don't play as hard. And in football, guys they'll slide, or now they play with flags. I don't understand why everyone comes at Adam Silver for the All-Star game in the NBA, which I admittedly do not care about. And yet the Pro Bowl also blows, and no one hangs that around Roger Goodell's neck. Like, Goodell's got to do something about the Pro Bowl. Everyone's like, it's the Pro Bowl. Who cares? Let's move on. And I don't think Adam Silver has been a perfect general manager or a perfect commissioner by any means, but of all of the things on my list of gripes, I'm gonna put that at the very bottom, and we can build it back up from there. Does that sound fair? I think that's fair. Eric on I-90 texts in, says, I think the Packers have wrapped up a three-peat for the MYT Trophy, Mostest Young Team, presented by Steve Young from Brigham Young. One more time, that Matt LaFleur soundbite off of Mike Clemens' question about the state of the team and how they feel about things going into mandatory minicamp next week, and we'll see with Elton Jenkins and Jair Alexander. But Matt LaFleur, I think, saying what will make a lot of Packers fans happy. It's like, okay, we've been a young team, but it's time to not just be a young team, right? We have plenty of experience, even though we're young.
I think that although, we're still relatively young, our guys are experienced. And I think that, they've been in a lot of these situations. So, it's just how fast can we get the new guys and some of the younger players that we're going to obviously rely on. How fast can we get them up to speed and acclimated to what we're trying to get done?
So, again, saying we're a young team, but we're really, really experienced. I think that's red meat for Packers fans, and that satisfies a lot of Packers fans, because I think that if Bill is any indicator, and people like Cone Roller and others who call in Texas show, Packers fans hate hearing about how this is, the youngest team in football. It's just an excuse or a line of thinking that Packers fans are just kind of sick of, and I don't think it matters to them anymore. When we come back, I have questions about the tavern in the game last night. I was confused. There was a debacle with a bar that was supposedly in La Crosse. I think someone explained this to me as I was watching on mute. And then I think the FanDuel channel made a little bit of a makeup call today. They gave it to Timbers 10 Mile, which is southeast of La Crosse, a little bit on 14. I think there were some shenanigans. I think the La Crosse community should feel disrespected by this mistake, slighted by this mistake. So we can address that on the other side. A little more Packers talk, and I'll also give you a final thought on the NBA Finals, a little audio from Adam Silver. Stop on out to Flipside. Happy hour still going for 25 more minutes. That's so much time to take advantage of the 2-for-1s and the $5 apps and the fish tacos, not to mention a beautiful evening out on the patio. So come join us at Flipside. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show is starting to wind things down, although the party is just getting started, if I may say so. Flipside. We'll be here another 20 minutes for the show, but I'm going to move out onto the patio, maybe get myself a Mai Tai. The fish taco is $4.50 on Wednesdays. It's daily special, and still 20 minutes in the happy hour, so come take advantage of the 2-for-1s or the $5 apps. I just saw Hector in Alaska. A little bit of a recluse. Well, he's not in Alaska right now, technically. I saw him here. He resides in Alaska, so I guess I should clarify. And some listeners, so it's fun. I'm excited to mill around after the show. A couple more thoughts on the Packers and another NBA thought or two. In fact, I see our friend Peter Bukowski tweeting about the NBA. You always know it's good when Peter gets involved. There's a clip that's gone, I wouldn't say it's viral, but it's getting a lot of run today, of Adam Silver on Breakfast Ball this morning, which, by the way, I didn't know until 2 weekends ago, the meaning of the phrase breakfast ball. I just thought it was a good name for a television show. It's breakfast time. We're talking about ball, football, basketball, probably not much baseball in FS1, but, it's Sandy Parkins and Craig Carton and Mark Schlereth. Mark Schlereth, who's really good. I like Schlereth. Adam Silver was on with them this morning talking about the NBA Finals. And this is the clip that a lot of people have been reacting to, because the NBA is about to start a finals tomorrow night between Oklahoma City and Indianapolis. And I don't know where those two markets rank in terms of size, population, of television, reach, television markets, that sort of thing. But they're certainly near the bottom. And neither brand is a brand that's, I should say associated with anything. Like the Spurs, that's a relatively small market. But there's real prestige there, and there was for a long time. Even Milwaukee, a small market, has Giannis. There's a ton of power there. Or Denver, which is a relatively smaller market, right? But guess who plays it? Jokic, right? With all due to SGA and Halliburton, this will be their first finals each, two relatively small markets. There's not a lot of, let's say, big picture pizzazz and sex appeal with this final. So here's Adam Silver talking about this. I think Adam Silver is making a good point, but he's doing it poorly, if that makes sense. Let's listen to this. It's 60 seconds.
It's one thing I really admire about the NFL. I mean, if we were going into a Super Bowl and it was Packers against Steelers, you guys would be celebrating that. Those would be storied franchises. People wouldn't be talking about, the fact that Pittsburgh is a small market. So in fact, I'm happy whatever team ends up in the finals, but it's been intentional from our standpoint to create a system, a collective bargaining agreement that allows more teams to compete.
God, that's true times 100. And we can argue about whether it's good or bad. We were talking with Justin Garcia about this a couple weeks ago. The CBA that these nuts all signed, and I can't believe that enough owners and enough different teams and individuals passed this thing through, because it is insane. They created a system that cripples a team as soon as they get a couple of stars signed, as soon as they start succeeding. it's hardcore. So I know I get annoyed hearing about the second apron and people talking about the second apron, the salary taxes, hard cap and second aprons, but it is nuts. So when Adam Silver says we've been intentional about creating an environment, no S. Like they really have. He's not exaggerating or speaking in generalities there, but let's let him continue.
And just by way of background, we're going to have to go through a process of getting to the point where people are accustomed to tuning into the finals because it's the two teams that deserve to be there, and it's the best basketball. Similar to, again, with the Super Bowl, if I asked somebody if they were going to watch the Super Bowl, they wouldn't say who's playing. It's a national holiday, and now that's nirvana.
That's
I'm not saying we're anywhere close to that yet.
Correct.
There's still, if the Knicks are in the finals, there's a segment of our fan base that's going to watch that may not watch if it's other teams. But my job is to get people to love and follow this game, and so that if you're a huge basketball fan, you should want to tune into the finals because that's the best basketball.
So he is correct that is his job. He wants as many people watching the NBA as possible. It's funny how people now, years later, and probably at the time too, I wasn't doing sports talk at the time when David Stearns was running the league. David Stern, not Stearns, but Stern. Like, it was pretty clear there were instances where they really tipped the scales for a bigger market team or a superstar. I mean, Bucks Sixers in 2001 look no further, right? Adam Silver's almost gone the other way, and this CBA is radical. I think that term has lost a little punch because politically it's been thrown around. Well, the other side's just radical. Or those judges are radical, or those policies, whether they're right or left, they're radical. Well, what does radical actually mean? Drastic, hardcore, really big changes or thoughts or policies. That's what the CBA is. It's pretty crazy. And Adam Silver is making the point, like, the Super Bowl, no one cares who's in the Super Bowl. But in basketball, it's like, well, the Thunder are great and play a fun brand of basketball. The Pacers are great and play a really fun brand of basketball, which I've talked about. It should be a really appealing finals. And yet there's such a large segment of people who watch sports who are like, wow, it's Oklahoma City, Indiana. Yeah, that sucks. It's like, but we don't do that in other sports. I don't really understand why. Like, I think the NBA is so superstar centric, so that makes a little sense. We want to see Steph Curry or LeBron or those guys in the finals, Giannis, Jokic, whoever. And Halliburton is not that guy yet. I mean, I'm not saying he will ever be that guy. I would bet against it. I'd bet against SGA being that guy too. But the analogy that he makes between the Steelers and the Packers is a horrible.
It's one thing I really admire about the NFL. I mean, if we were going into a Super Bowl and it was Packers against Steelers, you guys would be celebrating that. Those would be storied franchises. People wouldn't be talking about, the fact that Pittsburgh is a small market. So
it's funny that he says the fact that Pittsburgh is a small market when Green Bay is the other half of the analogy. Like, I probably would have leaned in more on that one. But also, those are two storied franchises with a ton of history. And I think sports fans, we need background. If I'm tuning into a big game, I want to know who the team is that's playing. I want to have history watching them in the past. I want to have previous experiences watching this team and this organization and seeing those jerseys and that logo on the biggest stage. I want the history in the background to make it feel big. And that is what's difficult about this NBA Finals, because the Pacers have a little history, but nothing significant. The Thunder are one of the latest, the newest franchises in the NBA. They have some history there with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook and James Harden, which helps them. But it's not like Cavs Warriors 4 straight years. It's like, yeah, this feels big because these are the teams that are always in the finals, and now they're in the finals again. So this finals must be really important, or this finals, they must have gotten it right. The best teams must have advanced. And we're getting a little bit of that in hockey now, which I love as a casual hockey fan, because we can just pick up with the finals, Stanley Cup finals, between the Panthers and the Oilers, who we watched last year. And it feels big. And it feels like, okay, I know these two teams. These are two brands that are meaningful and big. And the NBA Finals are definitely lacking that. But Adam Silver, even though he used a bad example and he worded it poorly, he is correct that in most leagues, we don't really care. Like, we don't care in the NFL. We don't care if the league or their television partners are going to pull a big number. And by the way, the NBA doesn't care about the number, at least big time in this postseason anyways. They just signed their new television deal. So they're set for another 11 years and for another, 70 some $1 billion. It's not their job to sell advertising. It's out of their hands. They already locked up their next television deal. So in 8 years, when they're coming up on a new rights deal, they might care a little bit more. I don't know if that's going to lead the league to, put their thumb on the scales, David Stern style. But they certainly, right now, I think this is the right time for the NBA to get some new faces and new brands into the finals, because the ratings aren't front of mind. The television deal is signed, right? The cookies are in the oven. It's good. They're good. So just a quick NBA thought. I hope that was efficient enough for you. I'll get to your texts on the Talking Text line when we get back at 608-321-1670 and on the live stream, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We're live at Flipside Pub and Grill. I always tell you, they're food and fun without the franchise. I love this bar space that we're broadcasting in tonight. I'm always in the same corner as where Bill was yesterday as well. I think it's a great space, and the patio is, right on the other side of this wall that I'm sitting up against. It's the best sand. It's the best space in town. It's an absolute blast, and volleyball league players are arriving. They're getting their Mai Tais and their drinks and their food and taking it outside. And happy hour going for another 10 minutes. So if you want to stop by very quickly on the way home from work, take advantage of the 2-for-1s, the $5 apps, and the fish tacos, the daily special on Wednesday as well, that you definitely want us to come take advantage of, or you want to come take advantage of. We'll wrap up the Wisco Sports Show. Final segment here at Flipside Pub and Grill coming up next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Final segment here of the Wisco Sports Show. We're going to be up in Eau Claire tomorrow. Come see us at Wild Ridge Golf Course. Oh my God, this question, a man after my own heart. Nick comments, which way are you taking up to Eau Claire? Okay, so it's a good thing you asked. I want to talk about this. So if I was going La Crosse to Eau Claire, I would go up through Holman and on Alaska, and I would take 53 to 93, and then I would take that up through Arcadia, right? And Independence, beautiful drive. That's the way I would go. But our hotel that we're staying at is, I don't remember what hotel it is. It's the one with Johnny's Steakhouse in the right at the 53 exit that would take you up to Superior. So when I was looking at Google Maps, I'm an Apple Maps guy. I was looking at Apple Maps actually earlier. It had us going up through Whitehall over to Osseo to get on 94 there. So, by the way, Nick, thank you for asking, because this has been something that's on my mind. I'm not going to tell Bill which way to drive. I am interested and intrigued. He uses Waze. Bill's a psycho. He doesn't mess around. He wants to get there, and if he's got to cut through an alley or cut through a barnyard to get there to save a minute, he will do it. Bill's a Waze guy. So I'm not going to tell Bill which way to go. I'm a 93 man. It's a nice, natural kind of halfway point with Arcadia. The problem is if you come into town on 93, yeah, no, that could work. It would put you in on a different side of town, but coming in on 94 is definitely for that hotel right at the 53 exit, kind of by Oakwood Mall. Like, that is probably the best place to come in. It's a difference of 5 minutes, probably tops. Thank you for asking, though. No one ever asks about highways or exits. Thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks, look, to Flipside Pub and Grill. We'll be here for just another couple minutes till the end of the show. And then I'm going to get some food. I'm going to hang out. I want to go hang out with Hector on Alaska. I thought I saw Southside Scott. Rico is here as well. Eric on I-90 made an appearance. I even brought the guy an extra headset. He didn't want to join. He likes maintaining a little air of mystery to him, a little air of anonymity. He'll pop out of the woodwork and show his face, but he doesn't like to shout it from the rooftops. His voice on the radio, yes, that he will do. But his face, sometimes he's surprisingly introverted IRL in real life, as the kids say. Appreciate Eric and Gordon Lacrosse. Gordon says, I don't think the Packers can use the excuse of them being the young team this year if they start out and are struggling. The current group has been together for the past 3 or 4 years, especially the wide receivers and Love. So this is the time to make or break it for a lot of these players, in my opinion. Gordon Lax. Well, yeah, I mean, again, there's two, I guess, dynamics at play. We've used Kenny Clark as a great example for this. Kenny Clark is a player that's under a ton of pressure to perform for the Packers this season because he's going to be a huge part of a pass rush that wasn't, by and large, good enough last year. They also lost TJ Slayton, so he's going to need to do more in run support. He's just going to need to be all around better. He also needs to be better outside of the Packers because if he isn't, he'll probably get cut after next year. And Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson or Reed or Wicks or all these guys, they're not going to get cut, but they're all coming up on contracts. And the Packers ain't going to be able to, why did I say ain't? They're not going to be able to pay them all. So there's only so many spots. There's only so much money to go around. So this is a make or break year for the Packers, I think, to win some games in this division and show a little bit better against their most elite competition. And they'll have plenty of opportunities being matched up with the AFC North, Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. And who's the other team that I'm forgetting? Pittsburgh, whoever ends up quarterbacking there. I think it'll be Rodgers, which would be fun. So it's important for them, but it's important for a lot of the players too, because they're playing for their next contract and their next stretch of games within their individual NFL careers. So it's a big year for a lot of individuals. It's a big year for the team as well. And I just reject flatly that this is any sort of step back year, reset year. They've invested big time in free agents, both of the last 2 off seasons, and they just spent their first round pick on a wide receiver in 25 years till 2002 or whatever it was. So no, this is a massive year for the Packers collectively and for a lot of the individuals on the team. A player like Elton Jenkins, Kenny Clark, Jair Alexander, we'll see. I think we're probably going to get more into the Jair Alexander talk tomorrow and Friday and certainly next week because June 1st came and went and they didn't cut him. If they really were motivated to cut him and that's what they wanted to do above all else, then they would have done it. Why wait? But we learned through Jair's camp, ostensibly, via Matt Schneidman of The Athletic last week, or the week before, it all starts to run together, that he's going to show up to mandatory minicamp. He's going to be at the offseason activities with or without a new contract, like with or without. And I don't think the Packers want that. I don't think they want Jair stepping foot on the field for even a basic, simple walkthrough under this current deal, because I don't think that they, in any world, in any reality, want to pay him this current deal. And if he gets hurt or something happens, then they are liable, and this becomes, a lot more of a rat's nest. So Jair, I think, saying, I'm going to show up. I'm going to be there. I'm under contract because he wants to stay under this contract. He doesn't want to get cut. He stands to make a bunch of money. Even if he takes a pay cut with the Packers, he stands to still make a lot of money from them. But I think next week is going to be a big threshold. If Jair is there and practicing, I think it's going to be because they're about to settle on a restructure or something has been agreed to. And I think up until this point, both sides, most notably the Packers, have just been putting it off because they don't want to deal with it, right? They're trying to trade him. They're trying to get him out of here. And no other team would oblige them. So we'll look forward to that next week as well. So many thanks to Flipside for hosting Billy yesterday and for me today. It is truly my favorite place to broadcast. We'll be live at Wild Ridge Golf Course in Eau Claire from 10 to 2 and from 4 to 6 tomorrow. So WAYY listeners, come on out and see us. The rest of you have